it's great to have here a number of friends, students, colleagues, partners. All this started like, hey, Victor, I'm coming to Barcelona for mobile. Let's go for a beer. Why not? A friend of a friend will join us. A friend of a friend of a friend will join us. And here we are today. So I hope this is something useful. Welcome to Barcelona. Remember, we are in Barcelona. We have pickpockets. Beware of your belongings. Okay, so this is an open space, so anyone can come here. And basically, first of all, I would like to thank our sponsors to make this happen. So this is a non-commercial event. So thank you, all of them, for agreeing to cover some of our expenses to the university to put a place for us. Mobile World Congress was crazily expensive, so that's why we decided to stay here, and we are away from those telco guys. And yeah, that's pretty much where I wanted to say. My friend Bubley, he's the well-known analyst, Disruptive Dean on Twitter. I think he is more disruptive than Dean. And basically, he is the co-founder of Disruptive Analysis, and he will be doing now a quick presentation, and afterwards, he will be just chairing the event and introducing some speakers and doing those uncomfortable questions to our speakers. Thanks, Dean.
Thanks, Victor. I'll present from over there. Yeah. So, not sure if this microphone's working or not. I'm Dean Bubley. I'm an analyst and consultant, and my job is to be a pain in the butt to as many people in the technology industry as I can find. And I quite like either telling people things won't happen that they think they will, or that things will happen that they don't realize. And WebRTC is one of those areas where I get to be more happy and upbeat about a technology, because I'm a believer in it. I've been following it for 3.5 years. I've published various research reports and forecasts on it. If you see a forecast chart which says there's going to be so many billion devices supporting WebRTC, it's probably one of mine. But that doesn't mean that I'm a cheerleader. I like to think that I can be critical when necessary, and I think that WebRTC is an interesting phase of its evolution, where it's changed a lot, and there's a bit of a confusing slide, and I'll mention it in a second. It's changed a lot since its original ideas as to how it was going to get used and by whom and for what. And for me, it's less about purely being the web and more about communications in context. And I'll talk more about context later. But the thing here is getting away from the old world of the phone call or even the voice over IP call, and actually putting voice or video or real-time data two-way into applications, into the web, into the Internet of Things. I saw some interesting demos recently as well. And I think that what we're seeing is a real set of innovations around how to bring communications, make it more accessible to all sorts of developers, not just telecom developers and historic voice over IP and enterprise communications developers, but web developers, mobile app developers, and also to telecom developers as well, given its MWC this week. And I think that we're seeing, even though we are not getting yet support from Apple, there are plenty of ways to get WebRTC onto mobile devices. Same thing, we may see a version of WebRTC called ORTC appear in Explorer, in Microsoft in the next year or so, or 6 months. And even if it doesn't, there are alternatives using plugins, unfortunately. But there are plenty of workarounds. And one of the beauties of this industry is that it's become possible to do most things with a bit of hard work. And there's a lot of innovative companies providing platforms and tools to help that. That's the forecast. Basically, pretty much every PC and soon almost every smartphone will, at least in theory, be WebRTC capable, either through the browser or through using SDKs and native frameworks for mobile apps. And that's a very large number. And I'm expecting there to be a good proportion of those to be active users over the next 4 to 5 years. There's some variation in geographic terms, but generally North America and Europe it's going to be quite high penetrations and a bit less so in Asia and Latin America. And I see that there's 4 main areas for WebRTC usage. There's consumer web applications, and that's sort of what we'd expect. You know, it could be games, it could be social networks, it could be dating, could be all sorts of interesting consumer-style web and mobile apps. There's a lot that's going on in the enterprise space around unified communications, conferencing, collaboration, and line of business. So maybe an oil company or an oil software company might want to have a maintenance app with a video diagnosis tool embedded into the app. And I think we're seeing that emerge. There's a lot going on around the telecoms industry, given MWC is here, there's a lot of interest in service providers providing developer platforms for WebRTC or launching their own services. And there's some really cool ones that are emerging. Telenor appear in, Telefonica owns Topbox, and there's a number in Asia. I noticed there's one of the Japanese operators is recently invested in a content delivery network using WebRTC data channel. And then at the bottom I've got there various cloud and tool players, many of whom you'll be hearing from this evening. In terms of where you're seeing WebRTC in the real world, well, we're starting to see the first uptake seriously in customer service. Call centers either adding video or using WebRTC as a way to enhance the voice proposition, either on the agent side or to the customer. There's some emerging consumer voice over IP and video services of various types. Snapchat's video is based on WebRTC. They acquired a company last year. In terms of sort of, emerging opportunities, there's quite a lot going on again around other aspects of enterprise, one-on-one learning and education. 3 verticals that get mentioned most of all tend to be finance, healthcare, and education. And although there's a lot of use elsewhere, those are the ones which people tell me about time and time again. And there's some interesting demos and real-world services. And then, there's a long list of additional uses. And I think one of the things here is that it's a technology that's not dependent just on one area. And so even if one is a bit slower to adopt than others, there's enough to keep the overall momentum going. Just a couple of, 3 different examples there of usage of WebRTC inside a mobile app, inside the traditional inside browser, and then in thing, I'm calling it. And I'm seeing a lot of interest, although perhaps at the moment just sort of experimental on the IoT integration and sensors as well. And I think the in-app is really grown a lot over the last 6 to 9 months. And I'd expect it to do so more over the next year or 2. Context. Don't have all the time to do all this in detail now, but one of the things I see is a wider trend towards contextual communications, of using contextual data, either what application you're using or where on a website you are, maybe what music you're listening to help provide input into the communication experience. Sensors, that could be obviously the microphones, but it could be microphones used to work out where people are in a room, or whether the phone is in a pocket or a bag from the echoes from the speaker. Or even you might want to think, well, actually, if I'm writing a social app and I'm on a beach, maybe rather than get rid of the background noise, maybe it's nice for my family to hear the waves crashing in the background. And a lot of other things around motion, heart rate, temperature, pretty much everything's going to feed into contextual communication, as is analytics. And both looking at what you're doing now, that's an analysis of someone's face, are you happy, are you sad, but also where you were and where you might be going in the future, and your past behavior and what other people are doing as well. And my view is that rather than just being about standalone calls, a very large proportion of WebRTC innovation is about putting communications into a context of an app or that's doing something else, where communications is secondary. It might be booking a taxi, choosing where to go on holiday. I saw a demo this week. It was a demo at a hackathon from a company called Yurishiku, which is doing almost like a mashup of language exchange and Tinder, where it's like swipe left and right, and to find someone who speaks the language you want to, and then have a video call with them. I like that type of idea. So I'm going to leave it there, and pass on to the various other speakers we have this evening, and I'll probably be trying to ask them nasty questions. And I suggest that everyone here also has good questions for our speakers, because otherwise I'm going to have to do it myself. Thank you.
Perfect. So my name is Torgeir Hovden. I'm with Mozilla. Some of you probably wanted to see Andreas Gahl stand here instead of me. Unfortunately, he had one speaking or one talk at the Mobile World Congress. That talk was scheduled exactly at this time, so you are stuck with me. Andreas is really excited about the opportunities that WebRTC opens up, and we are driving for Mozilla to be a key driver of that. And I think I'll start by taking the broader view. So a lot of stuff has happened over the last 20 years. It's easy to forget that. And I say that we're on the verge of a revolution, but we've had 3 of them over the last 20 years at least. So the first one is 20 years ago, where if you had mobile connectivity, mobile phones, today, almost everyone in the world can be reached through voice and messaging on a mobile phone. Over the same 20 years, in 1994, very few people had internet. You had internet at universities and so forth, and dial-up started to happen. Nobody had broadband. And there was no mobile internet at all. So the internet and the web has also happened in the last 20 years. And the third thing that has happened in these 20 years is open source. And the idea that a collaborative effort providing source code technology for a community, driven by a community, has also changed a lot of what is possible or not. And I think all of these 3 factors are coming together now, enabling real-time communications on the web, on mobile devices, on all other kinds of devices, using open source technology. So these factors have just come together, and as Dean, I'm very bullish about the opportunities that open up. I think we've just seen the beginning. So this talk is about WebRTC, and it takes many to build the WebRTC that we want. And I think I would like to extend the notion that this is not about a vendor making some technology available and everyone else making applications and business around that technology. This is about the opportunity to collaboratively drive the technology forward. And at Mozilla, we want to be the facilitator for what we hope will be the best WebRTC stack out there. So why is Mozilla doing this? So Mozilla is about the open web. So we want the internet to be a global resource that drives discovery, innovation, knowledge to people, opportunity to people. And it's critical for us that it remains open, that there are no barriers. So for example, it is not good if somebody that wants to build a communications application need to pay royalties to a company owning patent rights or something like that. So we want sort of the enabling factors to be open and free and royalty free, and have the community innovate on top of it. And this does not exclude in any way commercial businesses doing the same. But the platform of the internet and the web needs to remain open. So it is important for us that we, through this work and through this open source, also put these technologies, these protocols, into standards, so that anyone can implement them, take them into their own technology, also commercial technology. So it's not a point in itself for us that everything is open source, as long as the fabric of the web is so. And I think the state of WebRTC and real-time communications on the web today is in its childhood. There's a lot of stuff missing. And we need to evolve WebRTC as a communications platform collaboratively. We need applications, services that have use cases unknown to us, unknown to the other platform vendors, help us drive changes and features that we will eventually put into the standards. So in order for this to evolve into something bigger and even more exciting than today, we need a lot of services that leverage this technology. I think the second bullet here is about integrating WebRTC into existing ecosystems. So some of you are probably from the telecoms industry. I think there's a huge potential in enabling the existing communications infrastructure that can reach pretty much anyone on the globe with WebRTC. And using the WebRTC platform to enable integration of these old and legacy systems in new contexts. So we need, obviously, for this to be successful, we need browsers, endpoints, clients that support WebRTC. As Dean showed, the prognosis for that is that in few years all devices will support it. And we need many WebRTC stacks. So it's not good enough to have one stack, even though it's open source and anyone can look at it and inspect the code, and fork it, and so forth, because the good standards come from having competing stacks that compete, developing the best solutions and the best features. And we need to have more than one. Currently, the major ones are Google's stack and Mozilla stack. There are others as well, like Ericsson, that has developed WebRTC stacks. But I think it's at least important that we have two competing. So on the services front, as suspected or expected, the first wave of services was basically communication services with a twist. So you made a voice over IP or a video and voice over IP application, and you provided it in the web browser. I think the next wave that we're not seeing is what Dean described as in-context communications. I think we haven't seen anything from that yet compared to what's coming. I think the potential is huge, and it's probably a function of the maturity of both the implementation and the feature set. But I think we're going to see a lot of that in the coming years. I think the other thing we need a lot of is integration into existing infrastructure and services. So telecoms is, in my view, very important. And there are a lot of other devices that deal with communication. So we have, for example, conferencing equipment. It's important for Mozilla that we, through WebRTC, can reach all of these devices and communicate with them. And I'll get back to some things that we've done in order to enable that. And then there's the browser support. I think a couple of years ago it looked a little bleak. Currently, we're seeing that Apple is silent. We really don't know what their take on it is, and whether or not they will support WebRTC down the line. Microsoft has pledged support for Object RTC, which will probably evolve into a WebRTC 1.1 specification as an addition. So it's a lower level API than the current WebRTC API. So it looks like down the line, a couple of years, we will have a standard that also Microsoft supports. And at that point, I think it's going to be difficult for Apple not to support it. This doesn't mean that it's not possible to do WebRTC on Apple devices. So a lot of people use an open source WebRTC SDK and package that into their app and publish that on the App Store on iOS, for example. So this is not a complete or even 100% accurate list, but it gives you a sense of what we're working on in the stack and what's coming. So common for all the implementations today is you have a one-to-one video call, mesh calling. There's one stream of audio video, and you have a data channel. Recently, browsers start to support multiple streams, and renegotiation of the streams. Screen sharing is coming up, and also support for the H.264 codec in Firefox, and that will also be supported, at least most probably in Chrome. I'll get back to that. And under development, we have authenticated sessions, so identity for one-to-one calls, secure conferencing when going through a central router. We have scalable video coding or simulcast, where you transmit multiple streams with different bandwidth at the same time, so that the client can adapt. There's direct media control, where you can change the bitrate, for example, of a stream in flight. Yeah, that's pretty much it. And there are a lot of things that we see in use cases around collaboration. Service desk was mentioned, that may require additions. Okay. I'll speed up a little bit. I think it's important to see that the two sort of main building blocks of WebRTC is the voice and the video. On the voice side, there's a open source codec called Opus that has been developed. It's basically a combination of two codecs. One developed in an open source project, the other one donated by Skype, which is royalty free. So this is great. On the video side, it's a bit more complicated. So Google has provided the VP8 codec. It might not be totally royalty free. The way I understand it, there are lawsuits either ongoing or upcoming on that. What Mozilla has done is to get support for H.264 through the standards body through a compromise just recently. So to make a long story short, browsers need to implement both H.264 and VP8, which means that you will enable endpoints that have H.264 support in hardware, for example, and little CPU to do software encoding to communicate with other endpoints through this. So there's an agreement in IETF, and hopefully Chrome and the others will follow through on this. So what's next? I mentioned briefly WebRTC 1.1 ORTC. I think WebRTC in non-com services is it's an awkward way of saying what Dean described as in-context communications. So WebRTC taken into a service that in itself is not a communication service. It can be a customer services app or help desk or online university or something like that. And the question marks on the bottom is, so WebRTC is underspecified in terms of signaling. So currently, there's no way to have two WebRTC services set up a connection between them using a standard. So it's an open question whether or not we should go down that road. I think it would be interesting to get your views on that as well. Yeah, that's basically it. I'll round off saying that we at Mozilla, we want partners to help drive the stack forward. So if you do WebRTC services and you need additions to the core stack, we want to enable companies to contribute into the stack, and we have started something we call the WebRTC Competency Center. If you're interested in that, just send a mail to this email, and we'll take it from there. That's it.